Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. That is interesting. I've never really made anything quite like this before. Hi everybody, I'm Eliza of All Kinds Studio, and today we're going to be taking these shirts that I have thrifted and we're going to transform them using a natural dye process called eco-bundling. In this video, I'm taking you step by step through my eco-bundling process. Dye practices vary from artist to artist, and what I'm showing you today is a bit of a simplified method that is easy to do at home with what you've got on hand. I'll say several times throughout this video that there is no right or wrong way to approach this process. There are a few fundamentals to learn, but the rest should just be fun and playful. Now, let's get into it. Eco-bundling is a natural dye process that involves sprinkling natural dye materials onto fabric, tightly wrapping and bundling the fabric, and then setting the color by steaming or air curing. For this process, you need to use natural fabrics like cotton, linen, and silk. Synthetic fabrics like polyester won't work because the natural dyes won't adhere to synthetic fibers. Today, I'm working with these 5 secondhand shirts that I picked up at a thrift store. The first one is a really pretty silk. It has a nice luster, which will make our dye colors really pop. This is a cotton shirt with a pretty little eyelet detail, kind of delicate. Next, we have a cotton knit t-shirt. I've never used natural dyes with a knit before, so I'm excited to see how this one comes out. Then there's a silk twill. This is not a lustrous fabric, it's more of a matte and heavy silk. And last is a shiny silk button down. There's a few things you should know about getting your fabric ready to dye. It's really important that you start with clean fabric. The traditional cleaning process is called scouring, and I'm going to go through that in a future video, but right now I'm going to give you a really simple at-home method you can do to get started. You can put the fabric you want to dye into the washing machine with a dye and fragrance-free detergent and wash it hot. You'll also want to mordant your fabric, which is another process that allows the dye to fix more firmly. In the interest of time, I'm not going over that today, but I will do a future video on it. You can dye without mordanting, but mordanting is always suggested for long-lasting results. All right, the first thing I'm gonna do before we get started is tape off my surface, protect it with plastic. I always save large sheets of plastic when I get something in the mail, so I'm gonna cover my surface to protect it, and then we'll be ready to start. All right, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about my supplies. Over here I've got vinegar, twine, scissors. Then I have kind of an array of natural materials that you can find out and about. Grocery store, outside, I did a little bit of foraging. Just picked up like some leaves. It's all an experiment. I have some dried avocado, dried avocado skins. I have a yellow onion. I'm just going to use the skin from this. I have a purple cabbage. This is actually beet puree in here. And then over here I have dried natural materials that are more traditionally used for natural dye purposes, and I have purchased these. So some of them I have like extracts and powders, and then some of them I actually have like dried dye materials. I also have a jar, and I have some plastic spoons. Oh, and you know, always just want to have a towel handy in case you need it. All right, I'm going to start by prepping some of our natural materials, just to get them ready to go. So for the avocados, these are really dry, so I'm just going to, crunch them up. So we're going to see, I've never actually used dried avocado skins for eco-bundling before. I've used them for immersion dyeing, but never eco-bundling. So this will be fun to try out. All right, we're also going to take the skin off this yellow onion. We'll use a little bit of that. That's all the onion skin I have. Normally I go to the grocery store and I peel onion skins, but I did not have the time or the opportunity to do that this week. So that's as good as it's gonna get for our onion. This beet is already prepared. I had used it for a recipe. It'll still get the job done for what we want. And then for the cabbage, I'm just gonna peel off a couple leaves. I've also never used purple cabbage for bundle dyeing, only immersion dyeing, so this will be part of the fun experiment. That should be good. Actually, when you immersion dye with this, it turns fabric blue. Pretty cool. Just gonna rip up some leaves. I always like to experiment with some greenery. Usually I buy flowers from the grocery store, or I'll go out and I'll forage for some flowers, some pretty colorful stuff. However, I did not do that either. And it's not quite spring yet, so there's nothing really outside to forage other than some sparse greenery. So we'll see if any of this works for us today. These look like azalea leaves here. Hard to tell. And I also got a fern, because you can do eco printing with ferns. They're pretty good for printing. So got some fern leaves. So we'll just start with that.
Now I'm wetting out my fabric. You'll want to start with wet fabric because the water helps the dyes to seep through the fibers. You don't want it dripping, just damp, so fully wet your fabric and wring it out well.
Now that I have wetted out my shirt, my first shirt, I'm gonna give it a really good spray with the vinegar.
The vinegar helps the dye to fix more firmly to the fabric, so try to get a nice, even coverage.
Once I feel good about it, I'll lay it out. Now this part doesn't have to be super neat because the whole process is really about experimenting and playing, and there's really like no perfection involved here, which is one thing I really love about this process. I feel like you can't really mess it up, you know? It's just about having fun and experimenting. All right, just give it another like shoop. Just gonna start by sprinkling some of my dried avocado out. And there's no real rhyme or reason, right or wrong, to how you lay out your materials. For me, sometimes I like to create a little pattern or patches where I have my dye materials, but really, I think it's just about like having fun, experimenting, do what feels right for you. And I'm gonna put down some purple cabbage. Well, it's red cabbage, but you know, it's purple. We'll see. I'm just trying out a bunch of new stuff today. Definitely want to go for some of my other stuff over here. The madder is really overpowering. I think I might skip the madder for this one, just because I'm looking for maybe some more subtle colors. I don't know. Let's do a little sorghum. That is pretty dark though. This stuff, I'm just sort of gonna do some little sprinkling around. We don't need to cover the whole shirt. We're just gonna have fun with it. Kind of see what we can come up with. If I spray a little vinegar on it, I'll see it already start to activate that color, which is cool. I'll do some buckthorn. Why not? This is a little more powdery. All right, we'll go for a little madder. Madder is pretty orange. think let's do some weld. I don't want to overpower it, but I also don't want to underpower it. All right, I'll do a little bit of matter sprinkled on. And just because we're really going for drama, I'm gonna use some iron crystals, and I'm gonna use my spoon for this, just because if I get this on my hands, it'll turn my hands kind of like purple. So we're gonna go light with this. I say that, but this is actually gonna be kind of intense. All right, I think I feel good about this. So now we're gonna just start bundling it up. Again, no major rhyme or reason. If anything feels a little sparse, I might just throw one or two things over there just to make sure it's not gonna be too blank. But I'm just gonna start rolling it. Yeah, like I said, no rhyme or reason. I'm just gonna do some folds, and as I go, I'm gonna spray more vinegar. Now you want your rolls to get pretty tight because you want all of your fabric to touch your dye materials. I do feel a little nervous about this being sparse. I'll fold it over one more time. Fold this over. You guys probably can't see the detail, but I can tell it's already getting pretty good in there. So I'm actually just gonna continue folding over. And I'm gonna press all the air out that I can and more vinegar. And then I'm just going to start rolling. And I'm pressing very hard. Should be able to kind of see some vinegar sort of squeeze out. Should be very tight. And once I feel good about my ball, I'm gonna get my twine over here, cut myself a nice big piece. I wanna tie this sucker up pretty good. So I just go for it. I'm just focused on making sure it's nice and tight and bundled up. And once I feel good about my tied up bundle, I'm just gonna tie a good little knot. And there we go. Shirt number 1.
I'm gonna breeze through the rest of the shirts because I feel like at this point you've probably got a good idea of how eco bundling works. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the very satisfying ASMR of this practice. As I spray the shirt with vinegar, you can already see some of the powdered dye extract starting to activate and bleed their color. Now we've moved on to shirt number 3, which is the knit tee. If you look closely where I'm placing the iron solution, you can actually see the colors start to change and darken pretty immediately, which is really cool. Now it's looking like a big fat cinnamon bun getting rolled and tied up. Shirt number 4 already has an explosion of color. I'm pretty sure that's the buckthorn extract. You don't have to work with extracts at all in your dye practice. I use them mostly in winter when there's not a ton of natural color outside to forage. In your practice, you can exclusively forage, use plants, vegetables, fruits, or you can purchase dye materials to experiment with. It's all up to you, and there's no right or wrong here. This last one is shirt 5, getting rolled up and ready to steam. Like I said before, you want to get your fabric as tightly wrapped as possible. Loose places create gaps and the dye won't seep through the layers of your fabric if they're not all touching tightly. One thing I always do when I dye is keep a record of everything I'm doing. The fabric I'm working with, the mordant I used, the dye materials, how I rolled the fabric, and so on. It's important to keep a reference so you can remember your process, especially if you want to try recreating a dye result. Think of it kind of like a science experiment. You want to keep track of what chemicals you combined to get a certain reaction. When steaming your fabric, you want a barrier between your fabric and the hot water. I usually use a stainless steel strainer or steamer, but I couldn't find mine, so I had to improvise and make whatever this is. It was pretty janky, but it got the job done. The bottom of your pot should have about an inch or 2 of water, and once it's steaming, we will add our bundles, spreading them around and making sure they're going to get a good amount of steam. Then you'll leave them to steam for no less than an hour. If you can be patient, leave them to steam all day and then let them sit overnight and unbundle them the next day. The longer you let the fabric sit with the dye, the stronger your colors will be. Throughout the steaming process, it's good to check on your bundles. Add water to the pot if it's getting low, and try rotating your bundles so that they can get even steam coverage. The bundles will be super hot, so don't burn yourself. Also, when working with natural dyes, you should always use utensils that are separate from your cooking utensils. Even though you may not be working with anything toxic, it's best to be on the safe side. Get a pot, strainer, and tongs specifically for dyeing, and do not use them for food in the future.
Okay, while those guys steam for an hour, I'm going to clean up my workspace. Okay, it's time for the big reveal. These guys have steamed for an hour and I let them cool for about 15 minutes, so they should be good to go. This is definitely my favorite part of the process because when you put out all your materials and bundle it up, you really have no idea what it's gonna look like when it comes out. So this is always super fun. Let's rip them open. I'm gonna put on my gloves because I could tell that using all that iron had started to turn my fingers a little bit black. It's not a big deal. It's just dries them out. Let's start with shirt number 1. I got our scissors here to cut the strings. You want to be really careful you don't cut your shirt or whatever you're working with. Just cut your strings. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I love this part. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. I think it's the purple cabbage. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is so good. Wow. So we've got to get all of our materials off. Yeah, that cabbage is amazing. Wow, look at those colors. Oh my gosh. Shirt number 2. This one. Very carefully not cutting my shirt. This one's gonna be interesting. I can tell these tones are a lot more muted. Also, silk takes natural dyes and just dyes in general very well. It's pretty vibrant, and that's just kind of the nature of it because silk has so much natural sheen, whereas cotton is usually like a little bit more dull. Wow, this one is really dark. I must have used a lot of iron on this one. It's cool. I'm not as impressed as the last shirt. I think just used a lot of dark iron, but however, it's still really beautiful. I think I really would have liked more warm tones in this shirt, and I got a lot of dark tones. That's okay, because it's all an experiment. The onion skins turned out really pretty. They're kind of salmon-y, which is unexpected. Usually they're more on the yellow side, sometimes orange. Here we go. Ta-da! Shirt number 3 is our big knit. I have never bundle dyed a knit before, so we'll see. I mean, this is a much more dense shirt and material, so obviously the dye hasn't seeped all the way through. So it might end up looking a bit more spotty or like tie-dye. We'll have to find out in just a second here. I wrapped this guy up very tightly. Goodness. Wow. Ooh, the colors are good though. Let's do big rollout. Oh wow, oh my gosh. Look, you can really see where the iron went. That is interesting. I've never really made anything quite like this before. Shirt 4 was our silk twill, like our herringbone twill. So this one already started off being kind of a beige color. So I'm interested to see how it looks with the dye materials, since it didn't start out white. Goodness, it's a mess. Ooh. Yeah, the cabbage is gonna make this one fun. I'm gonna have to keep in mind that cabbage is really good for eco bundling. Ooh, this one's so dark. This one is moody. Whoop. Oh my gosh. Wow, oh wow, this one is so intense. It's very dark. Oh my gosh, that cabbage is awesome. Oh my gosh, look at that explosion in the middle. I accidentally dropped too much of my powder on it, but it came out really cool looking, very intense. Last one, shirt number 5. This one was also kind of a tannish silk. Looks very dark. Probably should have done one where I didn't use any iron, but iron is so fun because it really deepens the color. How did I wrap this up? Ooh, yeah, I got some reds in this one. Ooh. Oh, wow. This one's good. Got some good kind of splotchy colors, a lot of good dimension in this one.
Again, there's other methods of doing this, but I'm showing you a simple home method. Ideally, you should let your fabric air dry, then iron it to further heat set your color. Or you can wash it right away, but your colors may not be as long lasting. To start, rinse your fabric in cold water to remove all the dye materials. Then you can toss it in your washing machine with the dye-free and fragrance-free detergent. Wash it gently on cold. You can either machine dry or iron it wet to steam, and then you're done.
That's it for today's video. I hope it inspired you to try out naturally dyeing. If you're interested in eco-bundling, I want to encourage you to do some more research and experiment with other materials and methods. I'm also throwing some resources down in the description, so be sure to check those out if you want to learn more. Let me know in the comments what you think about this process and if you're going to give it a go. I'm hoping and planning to do some more videos on natural dye because this process is so amazing and there is so much more that I want to share with you. If you want to keep up with me, you can always find me on Instagram or visit my website where you can check out my work. And I'll see you soon.